afternoon. Welcome, my friends. I am so excited to introduce the new summer term 2021 at Signum University. The faculty have joined me this afternoon to tell you all about what we're looking forward to. I'm Sparrow Alden, and I am broadcasting from traditional Coas Abenaki lands, and I am just thrilled that everyone was able to make it. All right. We're offering 4 different courses this summer, exploring Star Trek, Introduction to Old English, Tolkien's Poetry, and Classical Myths and Legends. And I am absolutely delighted to welcome to our gathering the Star Trek team, which will be Amy Sturgis, Jessica O'Brien, and Sarah Brown, and the Introduction to Old English team, that's Nelson Gehring. Unfortunately, Paul Peterson could not make it today. But so Nelson, I want you to carry the full gravity of Old English for the entire team today. You're it. Tolkien's Poetry, Sarah Brown is doing double duty this summer. And so she's going to be on for poetry. And the Classical Myths and Legends dynamic duo of Gabriel Shank and Larry Swain are excited to bring you back, take you back in time over 2,000 years to some amazing and classic stories. So what I would like to know from each of you is where are you broadcasting from? And second, is there something that you have learned or gained as a habit during this pandemic, which is going to stay with you, which you consider a benefit? There have been so many sad things, right? I want to acknowledge the sad things, but you guys are educators and you see learning opportunities everywhere. I would love to know what you have learned that you're going to be able to carry forward. And please, Amy Sturgis, will you lead us off?
Thank you so much. I am coming to you from Bristol, Virginia, in the Appalachian Mountain Highlands. And I hate to sound trite. I'm going to be a cliche here, but I actually finally made sourdough bread. And now I feed my little sourdough starter, and I am a baker now, and that's something I'd wanted to do for a long time. So I realize that just plays into every internet meme there is. But I now have sourdough making capabilities, which I did not previously have. So there's my accomplishment.
I absolutely love this. And whether it's a meme or not, you get bread. So everybody kind of wins. Fantastic.
Absolutely right.
Amy is an intellectual historian. She focuses on fantasy, science fiction, literature of indigenous cultures, and I don't have my script in front of me, guys, so I'm going to start making up wild and crazy things. When I start quoting plot lines from Mrs. Polifax, you'll know I've gone off the rails. However, what we do know is that Amy has been part of the Starship Sofa podcast. She's an editor, she's a writer, she publishes academic stuff, and is one of the most energetic and friendly recommender of books. Right? If you ever sit down for lunch with Amy and say, I'm looking for this kind of book, you'll go away with a very long list.
Thank you.
Also living down south, and I think still near Amy, Jessica O'Brien, not only active in literature in her academic career, but also in library science. I discovered this about you yesterday. It's very exciting. Jessica, where are you broadcasting from, and what did the pandemic bring you?
Hello, I am in Hickory, North Carolina. Amy keeps trying to move away from me. So she started out here and then went to Tennessee, Kentucky, just kind of traveled around, but she's closer now in Virginia. And what did I learn? I got my knitting back out. So I teach myself to knit pretty much like every 3 years. So this was the third year and it gave me the opportunity to relearn. So I'm working on a blanket because that's pretty much all I can manage right now. Just really long projects.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for picking up the needles. It's a very good thing. Nelson Goering has been with the Old English and Germanic philology program from the day it hit the ground at Signum University. He has studied, well, name the language from Northwest Europe and hand him a newspaper in it, and he's good. He is your docent if you need to walk around the year 500 in Europe. Nelson, where are you broadcasting from today, and what has the pandemic brought to you?
I'm broadcasting from Ghent, Belgium today. Well, as for what I've learned, I don't know if anyone has seen that meme going around where you've got sort of a picture of like a medieval monk sitting there, and it's philologist before the pandemic, and then it shows philologist after the pandemic, and just shows the same image of the hold up with your books with nothing much going on. I kind of feel a little bit like that. I'm not sure I've really got anything I can point to that new skill or anything like that. I've been a little lame and not taken the opportunity to develop myself in that respect.
Cruising forward. Fantastic. I'm going to move on to speaking for the entire Tolkien's Poetry staff, because she is the entire Tolkien's Poetry staff. Sarah Brown, her PhD thesis was in alchemy, so we know that she is a most magical person. She is the coordinator of the thesis program at Signum University, and as such, she has the marvelous task of matching up students who have a burning curiosity and idea with the thesis director who's going to nurture that curiosity and help is that the right word? Guide it into a complete and fulfilling project. Sarah, where are you today? And tell us about your pandemic experience.
I like the word herding, by the way, because herding and cats often comes to mind with that particular job, although it's a fabulous privilege, right? So yes, Noswatha, good evening from Cymru, from North Wales, where I am sitting in evening sunshine, which is kind of amazing, although it's only about 5 degrees out there. So evening sunshine plus chilly, but not quite Sparrow's 10 inches of snow, that's for sure. But anyway, yes, so this is where I am. And what did the pandemic bring me? Well, I'm going to be a real soppy doodah right now and tell you that the pandemic brought me my daughter, who should have been at university. And she started last year. And of course, in March of her first year away at university, she had to come home. And she brought with her boyfriend, who I met on the day he moved in. So that could have been awkward, but worked out very, very well because he's lovely just as well. A tent in the garden was an option. So he was with us for nearly 4 months at that point. They managed to go back to university, and then at Christmas, they both came back here. So actually, Mama has had loads more time with her daughter than she otherwise would have had, which I know is a little selfish because Emily really would have been much better at university, but Mum enjoyed it. So that's what I got out of the pandemic. And sourdough, because my husband is the sourdough master.
Oh, okay. A little bread theme. At this point, it's just a motif, but maybe if we have more bread breakers in the room, it will become a theme.
It could leaven the discussion, yes. See, I'm
10
getting a
points,
rise out of you already.
20 points to Team Cymru. All right, my friend. Larry Swain is a classicist. He is an academic writer. He has, Larry, we have never met in person,
We have not.
and I don't even have the ability to make, I could make up stuff that sounds like fiction, but beyond your deep interest, we want to know where are you from, what have you learned from the pandemic, and maybe a word or two about your academic passions, because I was not able to provide them to the conversation.
Oh, well, academic passions are hard to describe because I tend to be passionate about everything. So officially I'm a medievalist, but I chose medieval studies because it's in the middle. So I could do classical stuff, but I can also do modern stuff and do the stuff that's in the middle. So I'm happy as a clam. Right now, I live and work in Bemidji, Minnesota, which is way up in northern Minnesota on Highway 2. If anybody knows Highway 2, it's the first highway south of Canada. So we're way up in the north here. And you're welcome for the snow because we had that storm on Tuesday and Wednesday. It set it your direction, so you're welcome. With that, pandemic-wise, I'm kind of with Nelson in that, you know, the picture of being with the books, and you know, this has suited me too well to be in self-quarantine. So I'm a little bit nervous as we reopen of what that means in terms of, you know, like having to interact with people in the flesh. I'm not sure I can handle that.
No, you don't have to at all. But let's inquire of your teammate, Gabriel Shank, who lives really and truly, I am not making this up, near Oxford University. He takes walks around beautiful places that you have heard of in fairy tales. Oh my goodness. He is a writer. He is a professor. He does things like establish lecture series at famous colleges like Pembroke. Did I get that correctly, Gabriel?
Yeah, it's Pembroke. There's the Tolkien lecture series, which I helped found and help organize.
Tell us, what has the pandemic taught you?
Well, I realized during the pandemic that I had become almost entirely digital. I was like the character Cyborg in the film Justice League, in that I was doing all my work digitally on my computer, and then I was finishing work and playing video games on my computer. And quite often the video games I play are very similar to work as well. So I thought that's probably a bit too digital. I should go a little bit analog. But I thought, well, what's the analog version of a video game? And I had some old Warhammer models from back in the day, from the 1990s. And I thought, I've got quite into watching people paint Warhammer and put together Warhammer models on YouTube. It's actually, there's some fantastic YouTube channels that do this, and it's very kind of interesting. So I thought I'd give it a go myself, even though I haven't really done anything with miniatures or anything like that for about 20 years. And I dug out an old manticore from the mid-90s. I bought this, I think, in 1995 when I was about 8 years old. It was a bit beyond me at the time, but I dug it out, and here it is. So this is a Dieter Hellschnicht manticore, and it doesn't look impressive, but I used very strong chemicals to rub off the little bits of paint that I'd stuck on as an 8-year-old. And I drilled into it, and I inserted pins, and I used super glue, and I used a sharp knife to file off mold lines, and I used this thing called green stuff to fill in gaps. And I've just had some fun doing something physical with my hands, something that's kind of monstrous as well, and related to mythology. So kind of like part of my area of research, I suppose. And yeah, it's been lots of fun to do something physical for a change. And I haven't yet painted it, but I'm thinking about paint schemes and things like that. So it's been quite good to do something analog.
Fantastic.
And literally a quarter of a century after I bought it. So there you go.
Well done, finally using up materials that have been taking up space. To answer the Takako's question, whom am I broadcasting with? I live in a one-room cabin with my wife, my daughter, and my 2 dogs, all of whom have, if I'm making strange facial expressions, it's because I'm communicating with my wonderful family, who are all here in the same room with me, which is great. No, you may not use the blender until 3 o'clock. Hi, family. Everyone's waving. Okay, very good. Oh, my goodness. All right. First off, exploring Star Trek team. Most important, what are you excited for? And second, what can the students expect for assignments? I had one wonderful person who is a little bit worried, who would love to be calmed by learning what is ahead for them. What are you excited for, and what can students expect?
Well, for excitement factor, I'm excited about all of it. I've been a part of Star Trek, or Star Trek has been a part of me all of my life. And what I'm really excited about is going through chronologically and putting the pieces together. It can be very easy to fall into a series if you go back and re-binge it, or even really pull apart an episode. But what I'm really psyched to do with the class is pull back and look at the larger questions that are posed by Star Trek, the through lines that connect all of the different series and other forms of Star Trek storytelling, and be able to see some big patterns and things that are added by each iteration of Star Trek storytelling. Each part of Star Trek has something to add to a larger conversation, and I'm excited about engaging in that conversation with the class and looking at big picture, big idea topics, while also getting to do some deep dives as well. So we'll mix it up a bit. As far as what happens in a live class and in this class, for example, from my perspective, I'll be giving talks twice a week, 90 minutes each, and students are welcome to attend live. And if they don't want to attend live or can't attend a particular class presentation, they can go and watch that on video, because everyone is recorded and put up for easy access. But if they attend live, they can ask questions or make comments during my lecture, and I will stop and I will respond to those during the lecture or at the end. And if they come to a lecture asynchronously and watch it on their own time through video, then they can contact me with their questions and comments, and I will respond to those in the next class meeting. And I'll also turn this over to my wonderful preceptors, my partners in this adventure, to talk more about the assignments that will go along with the class.
Jess, how about you? What kind of assignments go along with your section of the class?
That's a great question, Sparrow. So as far as assignments go, we in the past have had papers. You take a topic and write a paper on it and then have that drafted, and then I'd look at that and hand it back to you. There's still going to be some iteration of that. I'll tell you too that my section will have different, Sarah and I haven't talked about it yet, but I'm guessing different assessment methods, so different assignments. So, maybe she'll be able to tell you something a little bit different than what I'm doing. But I'm open to suggestions, honestly. I'm trying to look at new ways in order for you to demonstrate your learning. So we have 3 learning objectives, which are very, very broad of what we want you to get out of the class. And there's many, many, many different ways that you can demonstrate those learnings. So something that Dr. Sturgis and I had talked about earlier in the week that I think would be fascinating is, Star Trek is over 65 years in the making. And she had suggested in talking about, if there was a museum, or if you were to curate, let's say, an exhibit maybe in a storefront and you had a minimal amount of space, what would you include and why would you include it and why is it important and what does it say about Star Trek? What does it say about the time it was made? What does it say about now? And maybe looking at that rather than, you know, taking a topic and writing a paper. So if you are in my preceptor session and you're worried about the assignments, please write to me because we can talk about that before the class starts, because again, I'm still finalizing what those assignments are going to look like, and I am more than happy to have your input and invite your input into what those would look like, and to co-construct what that will look like too. Sarah?
Fantastic. Sarah, yeah.
Okay, so like Jess, I want to have an assignment that takes that kind of holistic view of Star Trek. And that's what I envision for the first assignment will be something like, you know, looking at that first question in week 1, for example, why should we explore Star Trek? So exploring the whole importance of Star Trek as a cultural event, if you like. So I would like to have that as the first assignment. The main paper, because there will be a main paper 2 for me, that will be the choice of the student, something in particular about what has been explored. It could be a particular series, or it could be a particular concept or a particular theme, whatever, particularly, lots of particularities in these sentences, it's getting a little bit too much. What really fires you about Star Trek, that's what I will invite you to explore as your second paper. That's a lot of writing, so I like to mix it up with a lot of presenting as well. And so there will be a final exam, because there's always a final exam, but I don't want another written thing. You've already done the writing. What I greatly prefer for a final exam is an oral presentation, like giving a paper at a conference. And again, that'll be something based on something that you have become really fired up about Star Trek, and that you will present to me and to the audience as if it is a short, it's not like an hour or anything like that. It's not like Dr. Sturgis with her 90 minutes. We're talking about 15 to 20 minutes, a presentation of a short conference style paper as your final exam. In the past, I've found students really get a lot out of doing that because they get to explore something and sound really enthusiastic while they're talking about it, and really throw that out to their fellow classmates and enjoy that experience. And to practice that, we tend to have little mini moments during the 12 weeks where each person in the class will have the opportunity to lead some of the class discussion with a mini presentation and like a gathering of questions that you will then direct the class towards, that sort of thing. So I like my classes to be quite interactive. I don't really want to be the person who tells you what to think. I want to be the person who enables you to formulate your own thoughts. And I like as much discussion and interaction as we can possibly get into the classes. So whereas we have to do certain amounts of assessment stuff because it's a master's degree, I don't want that to be the be all and end all of this course. Because if you don't get to the end of the 12 weeks thinking, wow, that was such fun, I want to do the next one, then we've sort of failed. And I don't think that that is the main aim of any course. We want everyone to complete a course thinking that was absolutely fantastic. What's the next thing? Sign me up. So yeah, we'll get you doing your assessments, but let's have some fun along the way. That's what I say. And as for what I'm looking forward to, well, yeah, everything, because Star Trek, I get to feed my little geek soul, and I have been looking forward to this course since I first heard that Dr. Sturgis was going to be doing it for us, and I am like a kid at Christmas. So there you go. I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, what a follow-up after the Star Wars course. So yay! That's
Absolutely.
all from me.
It's going to be so exciting. I do want to make a note that Star Trek is going to have a slightly adjusted start time. Everyone who has registered has been put in the asynchronous discussion board where you write posts. And all your information about the small adjustment is going to be in that asynchronous discussion board. So please check your Signum email, join the discussion board to keep track of all the updates. We do have a comment, Gabriel, from Matt Muller, who says, Ref Warhammer, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. I think friendship has just been achieved.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And everyone else, please feel free to send your questions and comments in through the question box. All righty. Nelson Gehring, Old English. I have heard it is the gateway to a myriad of wonders. Tell us, what are you excited for this term? And then I know that the format of a language course is very different from a literature course. Would you just sketch the outline of that as well?
Yep. Well, there's a lot to look forward to with Old English. It's the language of excellent poetry, like Beowulf. It's probably the most famous thing. So this is the early period of the English language, sort of 700 to 1100. We're talking about so early medieval English. There's a very rich body of poetry. We will look at some of that. We'll look at this a little taste of Beowulf, although Beowulf is another class properly. We're sort of building up to Beowulf, and we'll read lots of other good poetry along the way. Elegiac poetry like The Wanderer, heroic poetry like the Battle of Malden, all sorts of really good and fun stuff. Learning Old English is also an excellent way to learn more about modern English. It's sort of the way to get into learning about the history of English, how the English language has changed over time. And you'll come out knowing not just about English, 1,000 years ago, but also have a better appreciation for what the language is like today and how it got there. And then beyond that, it's an excellent, probably for English speakers, it's the best gateway into Germanic philology more broadly. So if you want to go on and read Norse sagas eventually and learn Old Norse, which I highly recommend you do. If you've taken Old English first, you'll have a huge leg up when you go to try and tackle Old Norse, which is quite a closely related language. And same for Old High German and Old Saxon and Old Frisian and all these other wonderful early medieval languages. So Old English is a great place to start. For the class itself, the general structure we do is the first half of the class is sort of really sort of easing into the language, finding out what the nuts and bolts, how things work. And then we try and build up to reading text as quickly as we can. So we will look at a good deal of original Old English text over the course of this class. Especially in the second half, we'll look at a number of these poems. Like I said, the Malden, the Wanderer, Battle of Brunanburg, Cadman's Hymn, a whole roster of excellent shorter Old English poems.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nelson. And folks who are considering the Introduction to Old English course, the format this term will be some pre-recorded lectures with Michael Drought, and then twice a week, meeting in your small group live with your preceptor to go over the details in the text, the homework at the different levels as the term continues. So it's a very interactive, immersive experience, an awful lot of fun. While Nelson was speaking, Dr. Sturgis, Amy, a question came in for you. Which incarnation of Star Trek is your favorite?
That's a tough one. That's a trick one. I love whichever Star Trek I'm watching at the time, to tell you the truth. I have favorite characters, and I have favorite episodes, and I have favorite themes, and none of them are in the same series. So it's what I like particularly about Star Trek is that each series, each incarnation has its own strengths and its own things to say. And so I like focusing on the big picture, and whatever it is that I'm into that week or watching at any given time is where my heart is. So what can I say? I love it all.
Perfect answer. We love that. And we have 2 questions coming in from potential Old English students who say, what will the assignments be like? Is it just one big paper translation thing at the end? Is there weekly homework? If you're walking into a brand new language for the very first time, how is it okay to make mistakes? Nelson, would you please say something encouraging and calming and hopeful?
It's not just okay to make mistakes. You have to make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying to learn the language. Mistakes are inevitable part of learning any language. And it's how you learn. That you make a mistake, and then and you make a mistake again, and then you make a mistake again, and at some point, it sticks, and there's a feedback loop that eventually kicks in, and you start correcting those things. As far as the assignments go, so it might vary a little bit by preceptor session, as with other classes, but the basic idea is so it will be focusing more on smaller assignments. So it's not going to be a big research paper, I think, because the point isn't to do a research paper. The point is to learn the language. So it'll be focused on sort of small. There'll be some exercises and things like that to help you get to grips with the language. But really, what it's the heart of it is what we really try and build up to is as quickly as we can is reading Old English. So you're going to be working through first very simple, sort of constructed sentences, and then working more and more towards actual, real medieval sentences, and then whole poems eventually. And we work on reading them, understanding them, discussing them, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out how the language works, seeing what doesn't make sense and trying to figure out why it doesn't make sense. There's always a lot of that in learning any language. Then by the end of it, you'll have a lot of practice reading Old English text, and you'll be ready to go on to do something like the Beowulf class, for instance, later on, just to pick an example entirely at random.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so the Tolkien's Poetry class is back to the literature format, but it's a flex course. Mm-hmm. First, Sarah Brown, what does it mean that it's a flex course? And then, what are you excited about?
Okay, so a flex course is one where all of the lectures are already available. So if you're signing up for Tolkien's Poetry, you can start watching the lectures as soon as you like. They will be there and available for you. If you are, Mrs. Keen and you want to watch lots and lots of lectures in 1 week and you've got lots of time to do that, you can literally watch 5 or 6 lectures in a week if you wish, because it's flexible. The only thing that we ask is that you have at least watched the lectures that you need to have watched for each of the classes, which are not flexible. They will be 1 particular hour on 1 particular day with yours truly. So you will need to make sure that you have watched those, but it's flexible in that the lectures were recorded a little while ago by Dr. Olson, and so they are available to you to access. So that's what it means by a flexible course in that sense. It also means that those who are taking it as auditors, that even though the ones who aren't discussion auditors, if you are just taking it because you want to watch the lectures, again with that flexibility, watch 1 a week, watch 6 a week, however much you want to do, whatever fits in with your particular life, because it's flexible. So it's particularly good for those who aren't attending the discussion groups, that you can really fit it around whatever your commitments are for that week. So that's the flexibility bit. What am I looking forward to?
Yes.
I find that with Tolkien's poetry, people tend to discount it. They tend to skip over it. When they're reading The Lord of the Rings, for example, So many people I know will be going through the Lord of the Rings and they'll tell me, yeah, the poetry, but I just skip past that. I skip past it. And that's a lot of people. And I know a lot of people who have read and loved the Middle Earth narratives, but have they read any of the early fairy poetry? Have you read Bimble Bay or Fasti Tokalon or any of those, which are such great poems? So for so many people, it will be really an introduction to an aspect of Tolkien's writing that they really haven't engaged with before. Even if they're aware of it, they haven't really engaged with it. And why should we? You know, go on, Sparrow.
I have a question that just came in the question box.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Tolkien had these other poems, but in The Lord of the Rings, why should we spend time on the poetry in the story when we just want to get on with the story?
Yeah, that is a really good question. And it's one of the reasons why people skip over the poems. They want to get on with the narrative. What they're missing, if they do that, is the beauty of the language. Bear with me a second. Ah, like gold fall the leaves in the wind, long years numberless as the wings of trees. The years have passed like swift draughts of the sweet mead in lofty halls beyond the west, beneath the blue vaults of Varda, wherein the stars tremble in the song of her voice, holy and queenly. Who now shall refill the cup for me? For now the kindler, Varda, the queen of the stars, from Mount Everwhite has uplifted her hands like clouds, and all paths are drowned deep in shadow, and out of a grey country darkness lies on the foaming waves between us, and mist covers the jewels of Calakiria forever. Now lost, lost to those from the east is Valimar. Farewell, maybe thou shalt find Valimar, maybe even thou shalt find it. Farewell. Namarie, nai hiruvalye Valimar, nai elye hiruva, Namarie. I read that poem at my father's funeral. It's beautiful. It's stunning. The lyricality of the language, if it doesn't grip you by the heart and shake you, then you're a robot, frankly. The beauty of Tolkien's language is that even in the narrative, there is poetry. There is this absolute lyricality to the way in which he writes. And if you skip over the poetry, you miss so much of the emotion. Yeah, here you can read Galadriel is bidding them farewell. Off you pop, fellowship, have fun, good luck. But you're missing the emotion behind it. This is an elf who has lived in Middle-earth for thousands of years. She has experienced loss like we have never imagined. She has seen it and lived it all. And at this moment, she truly believes that she has lost Valinor, that she will never regain it. She will never see that again. And yet she is doing her best to farewell others who may yet bring some light to the world. You miss that if you don't read the poetry. And then, of course, there's the joy of the Hobbit poetry. You know, even where Sam is declaiming some poetry in Lothlorien when he thinks that Gandalf is dead, and he gives his little poem about the fireworks, and it's all just so much more uplifting. It's all emotion embedded in the text. And that's why it is so worth looking at Tolkien's poetry. You've missed so much if you don't. They are.
Fantastic. We have a comment that just came in that from someone who just recently took Tolkien and Tradition, in which the power and significance of Tolkien's poetry is lifted up. And it sounds like someone who's very excited to be in the focused on poetry course. So yay. And that was Dr. Brown making me cry across an entire ocean. Thank you. Sparrow has wept the day the world may continue spinning. Okay, good, good. Oh my goodness. Okay, okay. Team Classical Myths and Legends, tell me what you are excited for. Larry, what's your favorite thing in this course?
All of it. I'm sorry. That's the easy answer, but I love this material, and so being able to teach it always excites me. And so as soon as you say, I say that, oh, Hesiod's Theogony is my favorite, and then we pick up the Iliad, and oh no, that's my favorite, and so on and so forth. So how can you pick just one and say that this is it? You just can't.
Got it. Gabriel Shank, is there something you're particularly eagerly looking forward to in this course?
Yeah, well, sorry to sound like a parrot, but yeah, all of it. I mean, in particular, I suppose I always look forward to hearing what the students have to say and how they read it. And I think particularly with these texts, I mean, like Professor Swain, I love these texts, and they're so vivid. We get so much out of them. I mean, when your origin story involves cutting off the scrotum of a god and throwing them into water and stuff, it's just so much to get out of that, and then everything in Homer and everything else, and so I can't wait to get stuck in and revisit these texts and hear from people what they're getting out of it as well. It's something I think about a lot is that Tennysonian question: why remodel models? Why go back to the past? This is a question that Tennyson posed in his Arthurian epic Idylls of the King, which he himself was going back to classical traditions, and hence why he calls that Idylls of the King. He describes the Arthurian legend as having Homeric echoes because it's all one kind of wonderful thing, the myth and the legends tradition. We don't believe that the gods live in Mount Olympus anymore, or most of us don't. Therefore, is there any point in reading stories about them? Of course there is. We get so much out of these texts. These are living texts. They were written a long time ago, but they're alive today and will be with us in the future as well. So really, really looking forward to hearing Professor Swain's lectures. He's an incredible speaker, and reading all the essays that students are writing and all their comments in the discussion boards and in the preceptor sessions. Can't wait.
Fantastic. We have one person in the audience today who says she already took and loved that course, but she is still not fond of Achilles. And I'll ask you, Larry Swain, what can from Kira Tregoning, what can we expect for assignments in the myths course?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of divided into three. One is regular reading and engagement with the text. And so the preceptor sessions will be hopefully a lot of discussion, very little of me and a whole lot of the students thinking about and reacting to and considering the text that we're reading. And then there's is going to be a main paper, a research paper. And then the third one is a project. And that is pretty much open to the students to design. It can be more on the academic side if that's what their personality and choices are, but it can be something entirely creative. And so, I've had students write short stories. I've had students make online games out of the text that we've been reading. So, they discuss with me and make sure that it's related to the material that we're dealing with, and that's it. So those three things: engagement with the text, reading the paper, and then the project.
Fantastic. Oh, and a question for Professor Gehring from Matt Muller. And he asks, would Professor Nelson be so kind as to teach us how to hurl Old English insults at our foes?
Well, I think probably the worst insult you could do would be to our tower. You're a coward. That's the someone who runs away.
Perhaps this could be an entire thread on your discussion board.
But if you want to know the full vocabulary, come and join us in the preceptor sessions, and we can talk about this to our heart's content.
I don't think anyone's actually done a collection of Old English insults.
That sounds like an assignment.
Proverbs, like the Beowulf and stuff, but I don't know that anyone's actually done insults. That would be an interesting study. That could be somebody's paper.
That sounds like a very. Go ahead, Sarah.
No, to say I'd love to learn some. I need to expand my vocabulary in that way.
Nelson, we could take the insults of the sagas and translate them into Old English.
I was going to say, we've got lots in Old Norse to work from, but we've got some, even without the dirty words, we'll be reading the Battle of Malden in the class, and that has a little bit of nice shade being tossed around as the East Anglians and the Vikings are facing off and shouting at each other across the water.
Amazing. Okay, you heard it here. This is how program development happens at Signum University. Yes. And here's another one. I just got a great question from Jennifer Ewing. And I'm gonna ask Amy Sturgis. Do you imagine, Dr. Sturgis, will Signum ever offer a course on or incorporating Babylon 5?
I would love to see that happen. So I would absolutely not rule that out. I know we will be talking about Babylon 5 to a degree when we are talking about Star Trek and particularly Deep Space Nine, but I would love to see Babylon 5 become a course. So note to self, just making a little note here. It's really good to know that there is student interest. So thank you very much. Like to see that happen.
We'll talk, Amy. We'll talk.
Absolutely. Oh, and I see that particular student say that she happens to own all of the scripts.
Oh, wow.
Which looks like a resource. Amy, if you want me to put names together, your two names together, I will be happy to do that. All right.
Thank you.
There is one more question for everyone, and then a very difficult question for Amy Sturgis. So I'm going to give you the difficult question now so that you can be percolating.
Okay, good.
Which is, what are your favorite Star Trek episodes? But instead of all of them, do you have one or two or three favorites? So percolate that.
Okay.
While we all answer this, and I'll ask Sarah Brown to begin. If you had the time, which of the other courses would you want to take this semester?
Well, actually, I know exactly which course I would love to take this semester, and that is the Intro to Old English. Part of my work at Signum is working on Signum Path, and one of the courses that I do for Signum Path is the nuts and bolts basics of writing, in which we look at things like grammar and spelling and why English is so messed up. And I actually do a couple of lectures on the history of the English language and why English is so messed up. And so actually, I would love to take this course, because that's something that would be absolutely wonderful for me. I would enjoy the heck out of that as a total and unapologetic grammar nerd. I think I'd love it.
Excellent. Jess O'Brien, which course would you sign up for in all your copious spare time?
Honestly, I don't know that I could choose. I'm very excited about all of them after hearing this. I would like to sign up for all of them. They all sound like they're reading great material. The discussions are going to be engaging. You have knowledgeable instructors and preceptors. So honestly, I couldn't pick. I would throw a dart and be happy whatever class I ended up in.
Excellent. Good to hear. Larry Swain, how about you?
Well, that's tough. I've already taught the Old English course, so I wouldn't take that one. Nothing personal, Nelson. But of the other, that's a tough choice. But I would probably have to go with Star Trek. You know, I've been a Star Trek fan for 50 plus years, seen every episode multiple times, every movie, including the animated series. I've got those practically memorized. And you know, I'm loving the new stuff that's come out, the Picard and Discovery and Below Decks, or Lower Decks. Excuse me, get the title right. So yeah, I would so take the Star Trek course, and I might actually. So watch out, Amy.
Oh, right, fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Nelson, you're next on my screen. Which course do you want to take?
This is a pretty tough choice.
It is.
I mean, I think if I had to pick one, I'd probably go for the classical myth class, because I mean, I've always loved those stories, and it would just be amazing to have the chance to read them, talk about them with other people who are enthusiastic, and hear from people who really know everything there is to know about them.
Fantastic. And how about you, Gabriel Shank?
Well, in my mind, there are 3 expansive science fiction universes, and I'm sure this is going to be controversial with all the Blake 7 and Babylon 5 fans. But in my mind, there are 3. There's Star Wars, Doctor Who, and Star Trek, in terms of the ones that span decades and span different media and mediums and formats and so on. I know Doctor Who extremely well, and I have a good sense of Star Wars. I've seen enough of that. I haven't read the books. There's a lot I don't know, but I have a sense of it. Star Trek is, to coin what I assume is an original phrase, the final frontier for me. I have seen, I really enjoyed Star Trek Discovery, and it was a discovery for me. And I've seen bits of the original series and bits of Enterprise, but I haven't really seen anything else apart from the most recent film. There's so much I don't know. Haven't read any of the books, even though I'm told they're really fantastic. There's some incredible writers like Una McCormack, who's going to be part of the series, the course as well, I think. So there's just so much I don't know. I have a vague sense that the original series was doing something incredible with racial diversity, with a whole approach to sci-fi, where it was emphasizing science and exploration, but I don't really know how to place that in the history of sci-fi or the 60s. So there's so much I don't know, but I would love to find out more. And apart from anything else, if something's been around for decades and is as popular as Star Trek, I always think it's worth studying for that reason alone, just to try and understand it and answer that question. Why it's not quite why remodel models, why model new models or something, or why have we modeled this model? I think these are always good questions to ask about cultural phenomena and find answers to. So yeah, that would be my choice, but amazing list of courses as always.
Amazing, aren't they? Finally, Amy Sturgis, which course would you want to take in all your spare time? And then that kicker question.
Well, I follow what Jessica O'Brien said. It's a win-win-win scenario. So I can't see a poor choice. I will say that Sarah Brown really did get me with her reading there. And if I could be promised more Brown readings of Tolkien's poetry, I would probably end up going there, just because, wow, what a beautiful reading. But all of these are fascinating, and I envy the students and auditors who get to be at each of those classes.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm gonna
can you name
a little plug, if I may, but
Go.
Star Trek is the original series is what got me interested in classical myths, because of all the references and stuff. So you know, there's a plug in there, and when you get to the next generation, you've got all sorts of Germanic myth and legend stuff going on in there too. So you know, win.
Well done. Alrighty, Dr. Sturgis, do you have one or two favorite episodes? in the whole franchise?
It's really hard for me to pick a series. So I'm going to go rapid fire if I'm, well, let me start and say, the episode that is unsung, I think, by many, written actually by a fascinating story of how the woman who wrote the episode actually got the episode made and seen through to its fruition. The original series episode, The Empath, which does a beautiful job of setting up why that original triumvirate of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy represent three aspects of humanity that make humanity what it is, what it can be, what it can aspire to. I think before Next Generation put humanity on trial, The Empath put humanity on trial. And you got not only this big idea story of the values that are most important in our species, but you also had a very intimate story about why these three men became a team that made history. And so it's a beautiful story about friendship and willingness to sacrifice, and also a great story about the values of humanity that we should foster. But I'll give you, if I may indulge here, I'll try. I just made notes to myself. If you ask me tomorrow, you will get different answers. But I would say from the animated series, How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, a story written by a native author on a native subject, and one of the first works to actually get Emmy credit for Star Trek. The Next Generation, Darmok. Language with metaphor. Love that episode. So many Deep Space Nine episodes. I think right now I'll say The Visitor. A beautiful story about a father and son and love that endures beyond human life. For Voyager, I think The Year of Hell, the two-part series, is just absolutely chef's kiss for Star Trek storytelling. Enterprise, Twilight, a beautiful story about a future that didn't happen but could have happened, or did and now hasn't. However you want to look at one of those timey-wimey episodes. But again, it's a big idea episode that's also about relationships of individuals. So it works on a character level and a big idea level. Discovery, I think Forget Me Not is a really beautiful episode about identity and about choice and about acceptance. So I'll just throw those out. But again, tomorrow I will give you a different answer. So don't hold me to any of those. I'm not counting Picard because it's hard. It's such a carefully joined sort of mini series that the episodes all sort of work to a whole. And Lower Decks, the very first episode, A Second Contact, really sets the tone for the whole thing. So there's my ridiculously long answer. I hope that works.
Spectacular. Once again, Sparrow is crying, so you know it was a spot-on answer. We've got students speaking up for Doctor Who being incorporated into a course. We've got students just saying, what a wonderful, wonderful answer to remind us that whether we're going to be studying 3,000 years in the past or 3,000 years in the future, it's all about what makes us human, which might bring us right back to where we began. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you most especially for teaching us with such generous and open hearts. We are excited for the summer. Thank you for joining me today. Folks who are in the audience, I'm really grateful for your questions. Thank you. We've got thank yous coming in. Ooh, and yes, more thank yous. You guys are amazing. Are we ready for summer?
Yep.
Lift your cup to Tasha Yar and engage. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great summer. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Yeah,